everybody, and welcome to the first installment of Batwoman Book Club. We are here to talk about the first portion of Batwoman's starring run in Detective Comics, and I'm here with my good friend from around the world, FanGirl. How are you doing today, FanGirl?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm really excited to talk about this run. I feel like every time I read this specific part of it by Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams, I just am reminded again that it's truly one of my favorite comic stories of all time. Like I think almost a decade has gone by now, and I think it's safe to put the of all time on it for me, even though I know you're just new to the material.
Oh yeah, this is my first time, and I can tell you this is going up there because I'm trying to create a running list in my head of my most favorite, and Batwoman herself and this book in particular kind of went up there. Especially the last story arc, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Is just, oh my God.
I'd never read it before because it's the first time it's been collected in that book, which just came out last summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and when I read it, I was like, this is okay, and then I got to the end, I was like,
oh my God. But yes, and it's also this is my first ever introduction to Batwoman. I know of her, because of Batwoman books coming out, or but this is my first ever book starring Batwoman, and I'm already in love. If I was sitting here, if I could, I would probably put heart shapes in my eyes right now and then just go, Batwoman, oh my God, she's so cool. That's how I would have, I just did it, but I just had the heart. Just imagine me with a heart shape.
So I think it's really interesting that you say you didn't read anything of her or know anything of her, because I felt the same way at the time, and I was like, surely there's got to be more. How does a hero this significant kind of pop up from anywhere? Because, in DC, a lot of times it's oh, it turns out it was their brother or their niece or their nephew or something. I feel like from reading Flash, it's always somebody related or who was around or something. But right. Batwoman is kind of unique in that she's not that. There was a Batwoman in the Silver Age, but this is not a reference to her at all. And that Batwoman, I think at points was even a love interest to Bruce. This could not be more different. And this Batwoman came out of the absence of Batman. So Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman were gone in the period after Infinite Crisis. And there was this weekly series called 52 that explored what was happening in all of the places where they would usually be heroes in the void of them. And one of the things that happened is Batwoman, who was just a regular Gotham citizen who's maybe doing a little bit of crime fighting in a non-costumed capacity, basically takes up the mantle while he's gone. She's just a totally unconnected person who decides that she's going to be Batwoman because she can be, because the city needs someone to be. And so there's no back reading. All you can do really before this is read a little bit of 52, in which she's a supporting character to Renee Montoya. She doesn't even have her own story arc. There's things that happen to her that get referenced here, but this is really the first ever Batwoman story.
Yeah, and that's very interesting though, because when I was reading it, I thought that, oh my God, she was already a very established character. Same. Or he's been around for so long, and I felt oh my God, I'm ashamed that I haven't read anything or known anything of her. But then when I started looking through Wikipedia and stuff, it was oh no, this iteration of her, not the original Batwoman, but this iteration of her, this is the first time she showed up.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. And at the time, I'm much more of a DC reader now, but at the time, I really hadn't been a DC reader since I came back to comics. And I was kind of shame on you, Peter, for not knowing. But no, there's no shame. Pick it up from here and you're good.
Right. So, and honestly, the thing is there is, on this, especially this trade paperback, there was an introduction by Rachel Maddow, who is a political, I think, I don't know what she's considered, an analyst for MSNBC. MSNBC. And then, she's a very vocal, she's gay herself. And, she kind of gives a very, introduction to by her is very touching. And as soon as you read it, you are actually on board. You are that you're going to read something that's going to be really cool.
She wrote this out of just loving it, because at the time she wasn't as big as she is now. She's one of the big cable news commentators now, but she wasn't that at the time. She was more of like an analyst, like you said. I mean, she
Right.
was visible, she was famous, but not in the way
Right,
that she is now 6 years after she wrote the author's note. So that always really, I love when there's things like that in a collection, because it like helps ground you in the time and the place about a character. It's the same as like a letters page for me. It just like gives you a little bit of the social context for a run. And the fact that that Batwoman as a hero is in her personal life unapologetically out as a lesbian, and that's why she left the military, is it's a plot point, but it's also just who she is. There's no question about it. There's no tatesies backsies. That's a defining aspect of her character.
And honestly, that's one of the things I really loved about her, because, she's not, there is no emotional turmoil to her about that. There's emotional turmoil about other things. There's other things that happened in her life that got nothing to do with her sexual orientation. But when it comes to who she is and the kind of person she is, that's not an issue for her. And to me, that's very refreshing, because if they were trying to make it look like, oh, she's still kind of 50, like, tormented about it, that would not really fly with her character, because she's so, like so out there and, in your face, that's what she would like, it just, she shouldn't have any kind of doubt about it.
Right. I think there's absolutely a place and a need for comic book stories about people who are still having turmoil about their sexual orientation, who are still questioning. I mean, I think those are important stories, and they're important representation too, because there's readers out there who are going through that, and it's part of the human condition, and stories are about the human condition. But I completely agree with you that Batwoman is not that. Batwoman is a story about an out, proud woman who, regardless of her orientation, just tells you like it is. There's no there's no creeping around the point with Kate Kane. She gets right to it as a person, in person and in the Batsuit. So I think it's completely consistent to her character, and it's great to read. Like I love just reading something that's like, it's not going to be about, it's kind of like when you read an X-Men book and it's not about the mutants being hated and feared, it's just about the X-Men being awesome. It's like, I don't need to read a book about an LGBTQ hero being, demonstrated against, or like fighting for their rights or something. I just want to read them being a kick-ass hero sometimes, and that's what Batwoman absolutely is.
And that's what, like, the whole, because there's different ideas of diversity. Diversity is not just like, a character being that way, but it's also different facades of the character, because, you like you said, there's all kinds of, LGBTQ, the queer people out there, and some of them are out and proud, and some of them are still kind of thinking it through, and we need stories of all kinds. So this one, and especially Midnighter by Steve Orlando, are like, two of the top, to me, like a top example where it's like, we're here. And to be honest, I frankly think that, that may actually encourage people to be more like that, right? Get over their doubts and things like that. So it can work both ways.
Yeah.